Jason Crawford didn't even wait for the morning shift to clock in properly. Kid showed up at 6 a.m. sharp in his daddy's BMW, parked it right next to the employee entrance where 180 working folks drive their pickup trucks and older sedans. Navy suit that probably cost more than our machinists make in 2 months. Gold watch catching the fluorescent lights like he was timing something important. My name is Maxwell Sterling. I'm 49 years old, and until that Tuesday morning, I was the founder and CEO of Sterling Heavy Industries here in Youngstown, Ohio. We manufacture heavy machinery components, drive shafts for mining equipment, hydraulic cylinders for construction cranes, gear assemblies that go into machines that build America's infrastructure. The kind of precision steel work that keeps a 50-ton excavator running smooth after 10,000 hours of digging. I was checking hardness specs on a new batch of alloy steel drive shafts when Jason walked into our main production floor. The Rockwell tester showed 58 HRC minus exactly where it needed to be for components that would spend their lives under extreme torque loads. These parts were headed for Caterpillar mining trucks, the kind that haul copper ore in Arizona and coal in West Virginia. "Attention everyone," Jason called out, his voice carrying across the 40,000 square foot shop floor like he was announcing the lottery numbers. "I need all 180 of you to gather around right now." The sounds went quiet one by one. CNC machines stopped their cutting cycles. Hydraulic presses ceased their rhythmic pounding. Even the overhead cranes stopped moving their loads of raw steel stock. 18 people who'd been building America's industrial backbone, some of them second and third generation families, all looking at this kid in his expensive suit standing on a shipping crate like it was his personal stage. Pete Kowalski shut down his lathe and walked over, steel shavings still stuck to his work boots. Pete had been with us 30 years, learned his trade from his father who worked the steel mills when Youngstown was the heart of American manufacturing. Maria Santos left her quality control station still holding the micrometer she'd been using to check bearing race tolerances. Tommy Walsh stepped away from our 5-axis mill, the machine his dad had taught him to operate before retirement. These weren't just employees. They were craftsmen who understood that when a mining rig lifts 200 tons of ore 500 feet underground, every bolt, every bearing, every precisely machined component better perform exactly as designed. No second chances when you're dealing with equipment that size. "I'm Jason Crawford, your new acting CEO," the kid announced, checking that gold watch again. "Effective immediately, Sterling Heavy Industries will be ceasing all operations at this facility. We're moving production to Eastern Europe, where we can reduce manufacturing costs by 40% and substantially improve profit margins." The silence hit that concrete floor like a dropped steel beam, then came the murmuring, quiet at first, then building like pressure in a hydraulic system about to blow. Pete Kowalski went completely still. Maria Santos set down her micrometer with careful precision. Tommy Walsh just stared. The way you stare when a machine you've trusted for years suddenly throws sparks. Carlos Mendez, our night shift supervisor and single father of twin boys, stepped forward. "What about our families? What about the contracts we signed?" Jason glanced at his watch again. "All employment terminates in 30 days. HR will have final paperwork ready by Friday. This decision isn't negotiable." That's when I walked through the crowd. "And who authorized this decision?" Jason looked at me the way you'd look at a shop floor worker who'd interrupted an important meeting. "I did. Acting CEO authority gives me full operational discretion." Acting CEO. This kid may be 2 years out of Wharton Business School where they probably teach you that everything can be optimized with the right spreadsheet formula. His father, Richard Crawford, had invested $2.8 million in our company. Back in 2015, when we needed capital for new equipment. 22% ownership that had grown nicely as our annual revenues climbed from $18 million to $47 million. "Show me the board resolution that appointed you acting CEO," I said, keeping my voice level the way you talk to new workers who suggest taking shortcuts on safety procedures. The kid's confidence flickered like a loose electrical connection. "The board supports this strategic direction. Maxwell, we're competing in a global marketplace." Global marketplace, right? This from someone who'd probably never felt the vibration of a properly balanced crankshaft or seen what happens when a drivetrain fails because some cost accountant decided to save money on bearing quality. I looked around at my people. Betty Morrison, whose grandfather had worked the Hazelton Works before it closed. Steve Anderson, our union rep, who'd fought to get these folks the best health insurance and retirement benefits in the county. Nancy Cooper, production supervisor, who could spot a stress fracture just by listening to how metal sounded when you tapped it. Understood, I said. Jason's eyebrows went up. Kid expected pushback, maybe some desperate negotiating or angry shouting. Instead, I walked through the crowd, past the inspection station where Maria had been checking tensile strength on hydraulic cylinder housings, past the tool crib where Danny Martinez kept track of every cutting tool and measuring instrument, past the break room where someone had posted our latest safety achievement certificate 900-847 days without a lost time accident. I got in my F-150, closed the door, and sat there for a moment with the engine off. Through the windshield, I could see our people standing in small clusters, talking in low voices. Some headed back to their stations, moving slower than usual. Others stayed put, hands in their pockets, staring at the concrete floor. That's when I pulled out my laptop and opened the file I updated religiously every quarter. The Excel spreadsheet that tracked every single share of Sterling Heavy Industries stock from the day Dennis Murphy and I founded this company in 2010. We'd started with nothing but a rented warehouse on the south side, some used CNC equipment that sounded like washing machines with loose bearings, and $47,000 in combined savings. Dennis had been a tool maker at General Motors before they closed the Lordstown plant. I'd worked quality control at Republic Steel before they shut down operations. Two guys in their mid-30s who figured we could do precision machining better than the shops that were still using equipment from the 1980s. Our first major breakthrough came in 2012, when Caterpillar needed a supplier who could machine drive shaft housings to tolerances within 0.0005 inches. Most small shops couldn't hold those specifications consistently. We could because we'd invested in coordinate measuring machines that could verify every dimension to within 0.001 inches. Dennis had owned 28% when he retired to Florida last year, selling me his shares for $3.4 million fair market value based on our annual revenues of $47 million and EBITDA margins consistently running 18 to 20%. Good numbers for a manufacturing operation in today's market. But I'd also been quietly acquiring shares whenever opportunities presented themselves. Board members who wanted to diversify into real estate or tech stocks. Early investors getting nervous about trade wars affecting steel prices. Longtime employees who needed cash for their kids' college or unexpected medical bills. Never pressured anybody. Never played hardball or made lowball offers. Just fair market deals when people were ready to sell, documented through Patricia Wells, my attorney since day one. Here's what the Crawford family didn't know. By the time Jason delivered his termination speech to 180 families, I owned 61% of Sterling Heavy Industries. 61%, not 51%, not 55%. 61% of every asset, every contract, every piece of equipment in this facility. In corporate governance, 51% gives you controlling interest. Anything above that is nuclear-level control, the power to make operational decisions without asking permission from anybody. I stared at that number on my screen. 61.0%. Then I started calculating what Jason's plan would actually cost. Moving our precision manufacturing equipment to Eastern Europe would require disassembling every CNC machine, every hydraulic press, every coordinate measuring system. Shipping costs alone would run $2.8 million. Then you'd need to recalibrate everything, retrain workers, who may not understand the tolerances required for heavy machinery components. But here's what really made Jason's plan impossible: defense contracts. 37% of our revenue came from military subcontracts, hydraulic components for Bradley fighting vehicles, drivetrain parts for Army transport trucks, precision housings for Navy equipment. Every single item classified under international traffic and arms regulations. ITAR compliance required American manufacturing, American workers, American-controlled facilities. Moving that production to Eastern Europe would violate federal law and kill $17.4 million in annual revenue immediately. My phone rang before I'd even backed out of the parking space. Patricia Wells, never one for small talk, just heard what happened. Jason Crawford overstepped his authority by about 6 different federal statutes. He wants to close the plant and move everything overseas, I said. Maxwell, you know what our union contracts say about plant closures, right? 180-day advance notice required for layoffs affecting more than 50 workers. He gave them 30. I know. And you know what 61% ownership gives me? The power to reverse every decision he made this morning and save 180 jobs while we're at it. After hanging up, I drove to Murphy's Diner downtown, where the coffee's strong enough to dissolve metal shavings and nobody bothers you for setting up shop with paperwork. Ordered black coffee and found a corner booth where I could spread out documents. First thing I pulled up was every piece of evidence I'd need for tomorrow's emergency board meeting. Union contracts with their mandatory notification requirements. Share ownership reports showing every transaction over the past 8 years. Email chains between Dennis and me during the ownership transition. Board meeting minutes that would prove Jason had never been formally appointed to any leadership position. But I also opened our Department of Defense contractor database profile, the document showing exactly which military programs depended on components manufactured right here in Youngstown. Transmission housings for M1 Abrams tank maintenance. Hydraulic cylinders for combat engineering vehicles, drive shaft assemblies for military transport trucks that moved equipment and personnel in places where mechanical failure meant people didn't come home. Every component required not just American manufacturing, but facilities cleared for defense work, workers with security clearances, and supply chains that could be audited by Pentagon procurement officers on 24-hour notice. Jason Crawford, MBA from Wharton, apparently hadn't done his homework on federal regulations governing defense manufacturing. Kid probably thought ITAR was some kind of guitar accessory. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Jason, "Final severance packages ready Friday. Plant security will escort all terminated personnel out by 5 p.m. I looked at that message for a long moment. Kid really thought it was over. Probably already planning his first all-hands meeting about modernization and efficiency and competitive advantages in emerging markets. All the buzzwords they teach in business school to make mass layoffs sound like strategic innovation. I didn't reply. Let him think what he wanted to think. He'd find out the truth soon enough. Another message came through around 2 p.m., this one from Dennis Murphy down in Tampa. Heard through the manufacturing grapevine something's happening up there. You okay, partner? I called him back immediately. Could hear a fishing boat engine in the background, probably heading out for tarpon in Tampa Bay. What the hell's going on? Dennis asked. Jason Crawford announced plant closure this morning. All 180 people out of work in 30 days, so he can move operations to Eastern Europe. Son of a gun, Dennis said, and the fishing boat engine went quiet. He can't do that without proper board approval. Mass layoffs require documented votes for operational changes that size. That's what I figured. Dennis, you still own that 5% consulting share we set aside when you retired? Sure do. Voting rights and everything. What do you need? Emergency board meeting tomorrow. 9 a.m. video call from your boat if you have to. Dennis chuckled, the sound carrying across 1,200 miles of phone connection. Wouldn't miss it for the world, partner? Kid's about to learn what corporate governance actually means. The next morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. sharp. No alarm needed. Internal clock's been set to manufacturing schedules for 25 years. Made coffee, scrambled eggs, read Industry Week while I ate breakfast. Nothing about hostile takeovers or plant closures, just the usual mix of contract awards and new technology developments. At 8:45 a.m., I walked into conference room A, carrying my briefcase and a steel sample case containing hardness test specimens, the kind of physical evidence that makes abstract ownership percentages real and tangible. Jason sat at the head of our mahogany conference table like he owned the place, expensive charcoal suit pressed sharp enough to cut aluminum sheet. Richard Crawford was there too, stone-faced in that way wealthy men get when they think they're about to close a profitable deal. The rest of the board scattered around. Dennis Murphy video calling from his fishing boat in Tampa Bay, wearing a Steelers t-shirt and looking like he'd rather be catching tarpon. Susan Davis, our CFO, with her usual tablet and legal pad, already taking notes. Captain Rodriguez from Pentagon Procurement, looking uncomfortable in his dress blues. Defense contracts made him nervous when civilian politics got involved. Lisa Davis and Kevin Baker sat together near the windows, clearly Team Crawford. They'd probably already calculated their consulting fees for helping oversee the Eastern Europe transition. Nancy Cooper occupied the corner chair, tablet, and smartphone both active, ready to document everything that happened. I walked in without knocking, didn't ask permission or announce myself. Just strode to the opposite end of the table and set down my briefcase with enough force that everyone looked up from their coffee and morning paperwork. Good morning. Thank you all for coming on such short notice. Jason leaned back in his leather chair, still projecting that Wharton-trained confidence. Maxwell, I appreciate you wanting to discuss the transition process, but the decision's been finalized. We're moving forward with the restructuring plan effective immediately. Have you? I opened my briefcase and pulled out the first folder. Because according to our union contracts, Section 12, Subsection D, plant closures affecting more than 50 workers require 180-day advance written notice to affected employees and their representatives. I slid photocopies across the polished table surface. You gave them 30 days. That's a federal labor law violation, carrying penalties up to $1.8 million plus individual damages. The silence stretched like metal under stress testing. Lisa Davis shifted in her chair. Kevin Baker suddenly found his coffee cup fascinating. Also, I continued, opening the second folder. No acting CEO appointment appears in any board meeting minutes over the past 18 months. Show me the documented resolution that gave you operational authority. Captain Rodriguez cleared his throat, the sound sharp in the quiet room. Richard, did the board actually vote on Jason's appointment? Because military procurement requires documented chain of command for all defense contractors. It was understood, Richard said, but his voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. Given our strategic discussions about cost optimization over the past several quarters, corporate governance doesn't work on understandings. Susan Davis said, looking up from her legal pad, it works on documented procedures and recorded votes. Time to reveal the ace I'd been holding for 8 years. There's something else you should all know. I opened the third folder and pulled out my equity ownership report, the document I'd prepared with Patricia Wells yesterday afternoon. As of close of business Monday, I own 61% of Sterling Heavy Industries. Complete silence. Susan Davis picked up the document first, scanned the numbers, and her eyes widened. She passed it to Captain Rodriguez, who studied it carefully and slowly nodded his head. 61%, I repeated, acquired legally over 8 years through fair market transactions with willing sellers. Every purchase properly documented and filed with Ohio Secretary of State. Jason's face had gone pale, like someone had just told him his trust fund was empty. That's impossible. We would have known. When's the last time you actually read the quarterly equity reports I send out, Jason? When's the last time your father reviewed them? Richard Crawford snatched the document from Captain Rodriguez, studied it like the numbers might change if he concentrated hard enough. The math was simple. 28% from Dennis Murphy, 15% from early investors who'd cashed out, 12% from employees who'd needed liquidity, 6% from board members who'd diversified their portfolios. All legal, all documented, all adding up to controlling interest, plus enough cushion to make hostile takeovers impossible. Nancy Cooper spoke up, her voice cutting through the tension. What does this mean for our workers, for the 180 families who were told they're losing their jobs? I turned to her, opening my steel sample case and pulling out a hardness test specimen, grade 414C alloy steel, heat-treated to 42 HRC, exactly the specification required for mining equipment drive shafts. It means no Eastern Europe, no layoffs, no compromising defense contracts for short-term profit margins. Dennis's voice came through the conference room speaker, satisfaction clear in his tone. I moved to reverse yesterday's plant closure decision and confirm Maxwell Sterling as CEO and president of Sterling Heavy Industries. Seconded, Captain Rodriguez said immediately, his military training showing in the crisp response. All in favor, Dennis called from Tampa Bay. Hands went up around the table, Dennis voting remotely from his boat, Rodriguez representing defense contract interests, Susan Davis as CFO, Nancy Cooper from production management. 4 votes out of 7. I looked at Lisa Davis and Kevin Baker. You both understand what 61% ownership means in corporate governance terms. Lisa raised her hand reluctantly, understanding dawning in her expression. Then Kevin Baker followed, corporate survival instincts overriding whatever loyalty he'd felt to the Crawford family investment strategy. 6 votes out of 7. Motion carried. Jason slammed his palm against the mahogany table surface hard enough to make the water glasses jump. This is ridiculous. Global manufacturing is inevitable, whether you like it or not. You're fighting economic reality. Maybe, I said, checking my watch, the same Timex I'd worn for 15 years, built to withstand shop floor conditions. But not with my company and not with my workers. He stormed out, leaving the conference room door standing wide open. Richard Crawford followed a moment later, pausing only to look back with something that might have been grudging respect mixed with financial resignation. After they left, the remaining board members sat quietly, the weight of what we'd just accomplished settling over the room like dust after heavy machinery stops running. 61%, Susan Davis said finally, shaking her head. You've been playing strategic chess while they were moving checkers. 2 hours later, I was standing in front of 180 workers gathered on our main production floor. The same concrete space where Jason had delivered his termination speech yesterday morning. But now the CNC machines were running again, hydraulic presses maintaining their steady rhythm, overhead cranes moving steel stock to workstations. The plant closure announcement was illegal and has been reversed by board vote, I announced, my voice carrying across the 40,000 square foot facility. Nobody's losing their jobs. We're staying right here in Youngstown, continuing to manufacture the precision components that American industry depends on. Pete Kowalski started clapping first, steel shaving still on his work gloves. Then Maria Santos joined in, followed by Tommy Walsh and Carlos Mendez and Betty Morrison. Within seconds, 180 people were applauding. Not because they had to, but because 180 families could sleep better tonight, knowing their paychecks weren't disappearing. There's more, I continued. We just secured a new defense contract for armored vehicle components. That means expanding our workforce to 220 people over the next 6 months. This time, the applause was louder, echoing off the steel beams and concrete walls. Danny Martinez whistled sharp enough to cut through the noise. Steve Anderson, our union rep, pumped his fist in the air. 2 months later, I was back in my office when Patricia Wells called with news I'd been expecting. Richard Crawford wants to sell his remaining shares, she said. All 22%, his attorney called this morning with a formal offer. I looked out through my office windows at the production floor, where our people were working on the new military contract. Precision machining work that required American steel, American expertise, American quality control standards that couldn't be replicated in some overseas facility where cost-cutting was the primary objective. What's he asking? 6.8 million, Jane. Fair market value based on current revenues and projected growth from the defense contracts. If I bought those shares, I'd own 83% of Sterling Heavy Industries. Enough control to ensure no outside investor could ever again threaten what we'd built, what these families depended on, what this community needed to survive. Make the offer, I said. 3 weeks later, my daughter Michelle called from Ohio State University, where she was finishing her mechanical engineering degree. Smart kid who'd grown up understanding that manufacturing wasn't just about making things. It was about making things that worked, that lasted, that kept people safe when their lives depended on precision and quality. Dad, I've been thinking about that engineering position you mentioned. Is the offer still open? I watched Tommy Walsh training a new machinist on our 5-axis CNC equipment, the same patient precision his father had taught him before retirement. The kid was learning that when you're manufacturing components for heavy machinery, there's no such thing as close enough, only exact specifications or failure. The offer's open, I said, but you should know we're not just manufacturing components anymore. We're proving that American precision engineering and skilled American workers still matter in a world where everything gets reduced to cost per unit calculations. That's exactly why I want to be part of it, Dad. That evening, Murphy's Diner hosted an impromptu celebration. Nothing fancy, just coffee, pie, and 40 or 50 people from our plant and their families, crowding into red vinyl booths and talking about the future instead of worrying about pink slips and unemployment lines. Pete Kowalski brought his grandson Billy, a high school senior who'd been planning to leave Ohio for college and never come back. Now the kid was asking questions about machining and precision manufacturing, maybe seeing a future he hadn't considered before. Maria Santos sat with her 3 kids, explaining how quality control worked, why measurements mattered, how the parts we made kept construction workers safe on job sites across America. Her oldest daughter, Sophia, studying business at Youngstown State, asked about supply chain management and defense contract requirements. Danny Martinez had driven down from his house on the north side, bringing his wife, Elena, and their twin boys. The family had been looking at apartments in Texas, where Danny's brother worked oil field equipment. Now they were talking about buying a house here, putting down roots in a community that still believed manufacturing mattered. I sat in the corner booth drinking black coffee and listening to conversations about overtime schedules, new equipment training, and which high school kids might be interested in manufacturing apprenticeships. This was what we'd really saved, not just jobs, but the knowledge that gets passed from one generation to the next, the understanding that building things with your hands is honorable work that deserves respect and fair wages. Sometimes the best victory isn't crushing your enemies, it's simply refusing to let someone else define what your life's work is worth and proving that experience and commitment still count for something in a world obsessed with optimization and efficiency. The steel hardness tester in our quality control lab would show the same readings tomorrow as it had yesterday, 5D8 HRC, exactly where it needed to be for components that would spend years under extreme stress. Consistent, reliable, built to last, just like American manufacturing should be. Real power isn't about the title on your business card or the size of your corner office. It's about understanding the rules well enough to protect what matters when someone tries to take it away from people who've earned it with their own hands. I learned that morning what every man over 50 eventually discovers. The greatest victory isn't proving you're smarter than the young guys. It's using that experience to build something worth passing on to the next generation, something that lasts long after the spreadsheets are forgotten.
I'm freezing. I'm bleeding, slowly fading away. But don't worry, I'm fine. The cold has settled in my heartbeat, like winter living in my veins. Every breath feels numb and fragile. Every smile just hides the pain. I'm breaking quietly in silence, falling slow without a sound. Yet I keep saying I'm okay, while my world burns to the ground. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry. I'll pretend till my last breath, even while my soul is fading. I'll say everything's okay. Maybe pain just learned to live here. Maybe sorrow feels like home. So I wear my wounds like armor and survive them all alone. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry. I'll pretend till my last breath, even while my soul is fading. I'll say everything's okay. If you ever see me smiling, no, it's just my last defense. 'Cause sometimes love means hiding how much you're suffering. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry. I'll pretend till my last breath, even while my soul is fading. I'll say everything's okay. It's okay. Don't pity me. My heart doesn't need your mercy. I can still stand on my own. I was broken by your leaving, fell deeper than I thought I would. But pain has taught me how to heal now and survive what once I couldn't. You don't have to look back sadly, don't reach out with guilty hands. What you shattered made me stronger. Now I rise where I once collapsed. My heart doesn't need your pity. not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow. I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling. I'll learn to breathe again. I once begged for your affection. Now I've learned my worth in scars. And the man you left in pieces found his own way through the dark. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow. I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling. I'll learn to breathe again. Begun. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow. I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling. I'll rise alone again. I'll rise alone